welcome to First Things First. We made it to Friday. Good for us, good for you. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. This is Nick Wright. We have come to the end of the preseason, and we are getting ready to start things off.
We've also, if I may shake your hand, if I may shake yours, we've also come to the final episode of year one of First Things First.
Absolutely.
The next time we talk, it will be the beginning of year two. Congrats to you.
Pat ourselves on the back just a little bit.
We're going to be better than ever.
Jalen Ramsey is carving out quite a little niche for himself with opinions on other teams, other players, other game plans. Earlier this offseason, you may remember he took aim at half of the quarterbacks in the league in a GQ article. This time, Gronk was the target in a piece on ESPN.com. Jalen said, here it is. I don't think Gronk's good. Let me say, I don't think Gronk is as great as people think he is. Anytime Gronk has been matched up with a corner, he's had a very bad game, and that corner has had a very good game. All right, CC, I'll let you react for a second. Then, has he put a target on his back with all the trash talking? Because he's going to go into the season with all these teams and all these players having read and heard what he said about, at this point, just about every big player in the game.
Any athlete that would say the things in any sport that Jalen, if it was baseball, if it was hockey, NBA, of course they would be targeted. Now, how you're going to target them and everything, but yes, they would be the target because we don't see our athletes like that. We don't see athletes criticizing other athletes as openly. Now, we think we do, and we think that we have some characters of the past that have potentially played football, but we haven't seen that many people like Jalen in the NFL. I would say the most recent guy is Steve Smith, and Steve wasn't as outspoken as him. Steve backed up his talk, too. His was more competitive on game day. We also said Ocho Cinco. He used to make a list of defensive backs and everything, but it wasn't that these guys can't play. He was saying, I'm identifying these guys that I'm going to encounter them. And that was more out of respect, I thought, than, saying negative things. So I don't think it's in Jalen's best interest. At this point in his career, he is already all-pro. Him and one other corner were all pro last year. So it lets you know what select company that he's already in. The other corner was Xavier Rhodes. They were first team all-pro. Let your play do your talking. And I'm like Tony Dungy. Tony Dungy said something yesterday that he hoped that some of Jalen Ramsey's teammates or coaches talk to him and let him know that he's a football player. He's a good football player and is a great football player. You don't have to criticize other players. It's not something that we're used to seeing in the NFL. And it's just not a good look for a great player. And I just believe that offensive linemen, they will target Jalen during the game. Be like, oh, okay, how offensive linemen? There's a number of screen passes during the game. Also, once a lineman stops blocking his guy, you end up running down the field.
Explain to the audience real quick what happens on the screen pass. Because I don't think they
Their
totally
number one
understand.
assignment of offensive linemen is to be able to let your guys go through.
Let the D linemen go through.
Especially the center and the guard. And once they do that, they're on the perimeter, and they're looking for cornerbacks or safeties that they can cut them down. They can hit them anywhere. It's one of the most violent plays that we see in football. Most of these DBs are trying to avoid them. But I just know the nature of this game. And I know offensive linemen, they will be trying to go out of their way. You say, well, why wouldn't wide receivers? Wide receivers have a different job to do. They have to concentrate about different things. But he will be targeted in the NFL. It's just not a good look.
All right, so here's why I think all of your concerns are valid. Here's why, despite the concerns, as a consumer of the product, I like it. You got 1,600 players in the league. I would not like it at all if all of them, or even the majority of them, or even dozens of them acted like this. I don't mind that we got one guy that says, oh, I'm out here. I think I'm the best in the world at what I do. I think I've been the best corner in this league since the day I walked off the campus.
He could have said that without saying...
Without cutting down other people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He could just be promoting himself.
I mean, that would be easy.
And that would be more in line with what you're saying we've had guys do in the past, which is promote themselves without cutting down other players. But you don't always appreciate Barry Sanders handing the ball to the ref. if Andre Rison isn't the other end of the extreme doing the things he did in the end zone.
Right.
I'm okay with there being one guy way out on the extreme as long as he understands, which I would imagine he does, because he's been playing football his whole life, everything Chris is saying.
He hasn't been playing pro football.
No, he hasn't been playing pro football. But
he hadn't had the media attention. Okay, so my thing is, it's okay to be a fan of how a guy, but this does not help him become better. It does not help him become more popular. So,
well, that last part, I think. Hold on, real quick. I apologize, Jenna. I do think it. Listen, you and I might run in different circles as far as popularity goes, as far as the way people view Jalen Ramsey. Like, I think the folks that I talk to, non-players, people, consumers of the game, love this stuff. Younger folks love this stuff.
And all those people, they don't know anything about this.
That's fine, but they still help his popularity.
I've been associated with the NFL 3 of the last 4 decades, all right? Like, I played in them 3. So my association of friends is broad and deep, being football-wise and non-football-wise. All right? I've seen the greatest players play. And talking, it did not help them. Now, in your small circle of friends, yeah, it might be popular. But overall, when you have Hall of Fame coaches like Tony Dungy, when you have a guy saying, I don't want to play for the Dallas Cowboys, they didn't draft me. Okay, we've got a lot of players say that. You know who they drafted? Ezekiel Elliott. Well, they made a mistake. Oh, well, the Dallas coaches, I felt like they said they wanted me, and Jerry Jones, I think he vetoed it. A lot of stuff, he don't know if it's fact. What he said about Gronk.
Oh, what he said about Gronk is patently false.
It's not true. So you and your friends sitting around chuckling, I think this is popular, well, at least get your information right.
Sure. but you said it doesn't help him. That could be accurate. Now, I will say in that game he played against A.J. Green, that trash talk he did mano-a-mano to A.J. Green did help him. A.J. Green got himself kicked out of the game, not Jalen kicked out of the game. But
a lot of that was stuff he did in the game, talking to him throughout the game.
Absolutely.
Not in a national article or a national publication.
Listen, I'm not arguing that. Go ahead, Jen.
No, what I was just going to say is I think we're also forgetting the fact that he's a place cornerback for a small market team. He plays cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You'd have to do a lot to put yourself on a national stage where GQ is doing a feature on you. How many football players will they do a feature on? Where ESPN.com follows it up with a long feature on you. So my question was originally going to be, what does this do for him besides give him a little more, maybe popularity is the wrong word, maybe notoriety is the wrong word, but a little spotlight on him? And is that good for him? Does that make him a better football player?
Jalen has to determine if it's going to be good for him. We see guys in the spotlight all the time. Guys react different types of way. But most guys, they know how to handle the spotlight, especially when you come. He was a big-time recruit from Tennessee when he went to Florida. Tennessee's his home state. That's where he's from. Went to Florida State, was an All-American there. You know, was a great football player, high draft pick for Jacksonville in the state where he played college football. Yeah, he's doing all the other stuff that he should be to be a great player, except all the talking because it's just totally unnecessary.
Oh, I agree that it's unnecessary. I also think he's put a bigger target on his back. Or as far as the popularity, we can set that aside. Like, different people can view the same thing. Some people love it, some people hate it. But what I do know is this. In week 1, he plays the Giants. And Beckham, who's quarterbacked by Eli Manning, who he said was terrible. In week 2, they play the Patriots, who has Gronk, who he said you put a corner on him, you shut him down. And so But
that's how dominant Gronk has been, that you have to change your whole defensive scheme. Gronk is already in the conversation of one of the 5 greatest tight ends
ever. Listen, his takes are erroneous, but they're still entertaining.
Oh, I can see why you'd like it. Okay, no problem. Okay, I get it now. Yeah. Oh, man, forget about some information. Forget about some facts. Let's just forget about it. Let's just see who's cute.
Here's what I know. That, yes, he's put a bigger target on his back. Sure, there's no doubt about it. But I also know that I am even more excited now to see, okay, let's see if he can back it up week 2, match up against Gronk, see if you can shut him down. And if he doesn't, he's going to have to eat it even more than he otherwise would. And if he does, we're going to hear more.
And then you know what? If he does, you know what? In week number 3, you still got to do it again. Look at your list, man. Yeah. And the next week, you know what you got to do, Nick?
Again.
And you got to do it again.
It's a hard job.
Yeah.
And he's made even
really?
harder. It's a hard job. He's made
Really?
even harder, but I can appreciate that.
Quick question.
I can from afar, I can be entertained by.
Does the team sit down and talk to him? Does Doug Marrone talk to him? Is Coughlin talking to him? Is this something that he can be reprimanded, or is this they're just going to let this go and let it play out on the
Tom Coughlin,
field?
you did a great job with the kid, OBJ, in New York. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that got you fired? I think you would say something to the next superstar that you have, and compared to letting it spiral out of control.
Are you surprised he hasn't?
He did, but not for this round of
Right, like that's
talking.
right. But this is a new round of
It's a
talking.
new
is my
round.
point. Like, are you?
Tom Coughlin and his old principles, they are still very, very effective. And Tom Coughlin needs to have a conversation because that's in the best interest of the player going forward. That's in the best interest of Jalen. All right? And get him to watch some film so he can see. So he is going to talk trash. At least he can be studied.
Oh, his points, they're erroneous, but they were still entertaining.
I can understand.
Got to take a break. Coming up, a great story in Seattle might be getting even better next on First Things First. Catch an MLB doubleheader tomorrow. First, Giancarlo Stanton leads the Yankees against the Tigers, and then the Rays battle Cleveland. It all starts at 3:30 Eastern on FS1, or you can stream it live on the Fox Sports app.
Shout out to Giancarlo for hitting that milestone last night. Good for him.
Time to go viral. Last season, Giannis Antetokounmpo emerged as an MVP candidate when he averaged 27 points, 10 boards, 5 assists. However, he's not satisfied, still working on his game. Check this out. Giannis with Kobe yesterday on the gram wrote, quote, "Find a way and have no regrets. Kobe Bean Bryant. Thank you for allowing me to work out with you. I learned a lot."
Listen,
I can
Giannis
see that.
is right after LeBron and Embiid, I would think, the leading candidate for MVP going into the season. 27, 10, and 5 is what you said, right?
Yeah.
27, 10, and 5 on, I think, 54%. Great defense. And now, for the first time in his career, he's going to have an excellent head coach. I'm so excited to see what the next level of his game can be.
You forget about the brow? What about the brow?
Anthony Davis, true. I think that team's going to struggle to make the playoffs, so it'll be tough to win MVP.
Yeah, I love to see this generation of players working on their skill with players who were great.
Yeah.
Like, I love to see it, the transfer of that knowledge, because Kobe had this knowledge transferred to him. So great to see.
And Giannis will never have the mid-range game Kobe did, obviously, but if he could improve his mid-range game just a little bit, it would make him even closer to unguardable. So that's a great guy.
Oh, so you believe in the Mamba mentality?
Listen, he's the 8th greatest player ever. No question about
Let's break out the list one more time.
Jalen Smith.
Jalen Ramsey.
Jalen Ramsey, yeah.
Takes. We got takes.
Erroneous. Time for some stories to start your morning. The Alabama Crimson Tide are the betting favorites to win the national championship this season. And how about this? At plus 175, they've got the best odds to win the title since the 2005 Trojans. So you see, is Alabama really that much better than anybody else?
Alabama's very good, but part of the reason why they're the favorite and that big is because you have to get into the playoff system. So their ability to be able to win their division, get to the SEC championship, win that game, and get into the Final Four, that's the reason why. The other teams, Clemson, Ohio State, their journeys might be a little tougher. Washington, but Bama, they got it now. They got players.
And Bama's ability, as illustrated by last year, to not even have to make the SEC championship end up and still make the playoff.
Because their reputation.
Because their reputation, which, and obviously they proved out deserved by winning the whole thing last year. So Bama's a team that, if you're going to beat them, you better beat them early. Because by the end of the season, when everyone's beat up, like Bama's, okay, we're beat up too, but we got more guys coming.
Yes.
So it's very tough to beat them in the playoffs. So I understand why they're such a big favorite.
Back here on First Things First. Look who's here. Super Bowl champ David Deal joins us.
Always a pleasure. It's a new season. Here we go.
Smells like football.
It does smell like football, right?
That's just the shampoo and conditioner I used this morning. It doesn't smell like turf or dirt or anything like
It's
that.
good. I'm glad I'm one person away from you. We haven't seen much Saquon Barkley this preseason. Let me put it this way. He's had 4 rushes all preseason, sidelined with a hamstring injury. But he's been practicing and is scheduled to play in the season opener against the Jaguars. But that doesn't mean there isn't high hopes for the number 2 overall pick. Former head coach Bruce Arians summarized it best when he said, "Holy bleep, he's special." David, let me start with you. How much of the Giants' success depends on Saquon Barkley and how far he can take this team?
I definitely think he has a huge influence on this offense in the way that he plays, but Having said that, you don't expect him to come in and have the numbers and the stats that Ezekiel Elliott had, because Ezekiel already had an established offensive line, where now with this offensive line with the New York Giants, they're still trying to form together and get that continuity as a group, because this is their first season together and they're learning Pat Shurmur's offense together. But the thing that you love about Saquon is just not running the football. You can use those passes and those one-on-ones as an extension of the run. So let's go back to last year and think about the way that the Los Angeles Rams were able to use Todd Gurley. Okay, you want to have him one-on-one, 11 personnel, one tight end, one running back. Okay, let's take the running back and let's split him out in the slot. Okay, you're going to have a linebacker in there. You're going to put the linebacker on him. We're going to go to that one-on-one matchup all the time. Okay, next time you go 11 personnel, you put them in the slot, they bring in a safety. What are you going to do? Motion them into the backfield, condense the formation, and run the zone scheme right down their throat. So having him out on the field and being able to basically manipulate the type of coverages in the one-on-one matchups you're looking for offensively helps everybody else on the outside at the wide receiver position, but it also helps the offensive line by being able to create space, dictate what coverage and what type of formation that they're going to get defensively scheme-wise, and attack them that way. So it is crucial for him to stay healthy and continue to get better each and every week. But with the other elements that they have in this offense, it's truly up to Eli Manning to get this team to the playoffs.
So you're saying from what you've seen, because I want you to break down the offensive line.
Okay.
Because I don't think we can talk about Barkley. Your experience as an offensive lineman and what you've seen is a running back like him makes your job easier.
No question. No question, because what he allows you to do is set up your zone schemes, set up your power schemes and whatever you want, and know that the minute that this player hits the hole, he has the explosiveness, he's quick twitch, he can make people miss in the hole, and he's a guy that can run through those arm tackles. So when you have a running back like this that demands that type of attention, it helps everybody out, especially the offensive line.
I have incredibly high expectations for him this season, if for no other reason than I saw two rookie running backs in not identical but similar situations last year have monster years. I saw Kareem Hunt for Kansas City have 1,300-plus yards rushing, 400 yards receiving. That was a team that had a decent but not a great offensive line. That was a team that had a quarterback that has a lot of trait similarities to Eli Manning, and they didn't have a wide receiver nearly as good as Odell, but they had a wide receiver that you had to worry about over the top in Tyreek Hill. I watched Alvin Kamara in New Orleans. Now, Kamara is a better receiver than I think even Saquon's going to be, but and Breeze is amazing, but they don't have an amazing offensive line, but they had a wide receiver you had to worry about, Michael Thomas, and Kamara was instant impact. I don't think it's a stretch at all to say Saquon is a better athlete and more gifted than Kareem Hunt or Alvin Kamara. That Saquon has more physical tools than either of those players, both of whom were mid-round draft picks. So I think Saquon is a guy that he could be the third straight rookie to win the rushing title. Zeke won it 2 years ago. Kareem won it last year. That wouldn't shock me. And if he doesn't win the rushing title, I would imagine as far as yards from scrimmage, he, Todd Gurley, he will be a top 5 guy in that category, no doubt.
And going along with that, in regards to what he's doing for the rest of this offense, think about this. Saquon being in the lineup, Odell Beckham Jr., when he was drafted, was going crazy because, once again, when you can dictate where they're going to bracket coverage, where they're going to put the safety if they need him down in run support, he's going to be able to get those one-on-ones out on the outside. And that's the one great thing that you love about what Pat Shurmur brings to this offense that they haven't had in a long time. I mean, let's face it, last year we're watching 11 personnel out of Ben McAdoo 70% of the times running quick slants and the comeback route on the outside. The thing that you love about Pat Shurmur, he'll go 11 personnel, one running back, one tight end. Then he'll go 12, two tight ends. Then he'll go 13 and bring in a jumbo. Then all of a sudden he's going 3-4 wides. But the great thing he's doing it by, he's the one dictating the tempo and the pace of the football game, where a lot of times offensively, okay, what coverage are they in? What kind of scheme are they running? He's not worried about that. He wants to be on the attack and let your players play free so that at that split second, you're not thinking, because at that time it's too late. You're just reacting and playing fast football.
See, we saw two running backs be difference makers for a season. We saw it in Todd Gurley's first year. We saw it in Zeke's first year. Is Saquon good enough with what you know about how Eli Manning's going to play and not knowing exactly who Odell is until he gets, back into game action? Is he enough to be a difference maker on this team?
I think he's going to be a special player. And Bruce Arians, he's been an offensive mind in this league. Before he was a head coach, he was an offensive coordinator. He has special traits. Forget about his character. His character is with the out approach. And also his football character, how much time he spends working on it, how infectious he is in the locker room, how hard he works. Football is very, very important to him. So I expect him to be a great player in this league. The only question I have is, can they give him the ball 20 times as a running back? Because the only thing that he didn't do at Penn State was just be a workhorse. If they have a lead, can they give him the ball 8, 10 times in the fourth quarter to be able to grind out that clock? So I'm not talking about when the leaves change. I'm just talking about how do you win football game? When you have a great running back, all right? And late in the football game, them great running backs, they're able to put the game away. That's the only thing that I haven't seen. That's why I can't give him credit, because I just haven't seen it yet.
And Dave Gettleman obviously thinks that he can do that and everything else. He said it. I mean, Gettleman, we talked about how when Lonzo went number 2 overall, Magic Johnson said, well, get ready to retire another jersey. Gettleman said, when you draft a player, number 2 overall, supposed to be a Hall of Famer. He said that. I mean, that's the GM who picked this player.
Said his talent was so obvious that my mom knows.
Right. And so for me, I have less questions about Saquon than I would most top 5 picks because of the position, because of the profile. You guys also know, and I think everyone at the table thinks Odell is worst case scenario, one of the 3 best receivers in the league. I like Evan Ingram in year 2. There's a lot of this offense I like a lot. So I'm going to circle back to exactly what you said. Eli is set up for success as far as a weaponry standpoint, as well as any point, if not better than any point in his career as far as the weapons. Now, the offensive line might not be exactly what he would have liked. They did go out and get Nate Solder. They spent a high draft pick on Will Hernandez. To me, this is a litmus test year for Eli. As far as was last year just about injuries and bad luck and bad coaching, or was it about all that plus a guy in year 14 who's now or a guy in year 13 who's now in year 14, or in year 15. That's to me what the biggest question mark about the Giants season is. How good is Eli still?
And that's the big question, and this is where he has to prove it out on the football field, because they went out, they said, we're not going to draft a quarterback, which was a big thing in New York. We're going to address the offensive line, which they did through the draft and free agency. Everybody's on the outside is coming back healthy. There's no more excuses about his play on the field. And to circle back about Saquon, one of the greatest things that happened to him in training camp, week 2, he goes into blitz protection. All the coaches are yelling, you picked up the wrong guy, you picked up the wrong guy. He goes, no, in the book it has it drawn up here. They're like, no, you picked up the wrong blitzer. He goes, no, in the book, that's what it's drawn up at. They pulled the book out. It was drawn up wrong. He was actually doing the play that he read and did it the way that he was reading in his playbook. And then now they're yelling at the person who drew up that protection.
Oh, that's
so that's how smart and that's how dialed in he is to the playbook that as a rookie, to be able to step up for that and to say, no, that's what it said in the book, that says a lot about the character of a football player.
Great story.
Great story, David. All right, thank you. Stick around. Coming up, how dominant, speaking of Zeke, will he have to be for the Cowboys to get back to the playoffs? Next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First with David Deal. The Cowboys have some questions to answer heading into this season. How will Dak do in year 3? Where can the offense go with a beat-up O-line? And how big of a workload will Ezekiel Elliott have with a less than amazing receiving core? No Dez, no Witten, no Michael Irvin. But Zeke is ready. Says this is the most comfortable he has ever felt in the offense. Chris, I'll start with you. How dominant does he need to be for the Cowboys to get back to the playoffs? How good does Zeke have to play?
Okay, even if Dallas's offseason had gone differently, if Jason Witten had continued on the career path, playing at least another year before he decided to move into the broadcast booth. Dez Bryant, even if they had negotiated and brought Dez Bryant back at a reduced salary, a more friendly salary, with this offensive line, I would have been like, Ezekiel Elliott is the best player on that team, and he's getting ready to rush for 1,700 yards. Like, that's the kind of season I thought. And talking to his dad, he's had a tremendous offseason. You have to realize these kids coming out of college, that first offseason is ruined. I mean, they're going from place to place. And the type of year that he had, we know what he went through on and off the field in year number 2. So he really hadn't had a great workout regimen. We've seen that he's added some extra bulk, muscle. Like, man, he is a great football player. And in year number 3 with running backs, I think you can go through the history of this league. They pile up some numbers in those early years. So I'm expecting them. Nick and I talked about it. Nick threw it out there.
I think if the Cowboys are going to make the playoffs, Zeke has to have 2,000 yards. I don't know where else the offense is going to come from. I know they're saying, oh, we're going to use him more as a receiver. I believe it when I see it. Zeke, we know what Zeke's great at. We know what he wasn't great at Ohio State, what he hasn't been great at in the NFL. It's not much. He's obviously a great runner. He's a better than he gets credit for blitz pickup guy. He's a good blocker.
Yep. Yes.
The one part of his game on the field that he has been average or below average, that's catching the football. So I don't think you're all of a sudden going to change that.
And some of that is just lack of attempts or lack of making that a focal point.
Priority, because
Yes.
you haven't had to, because he's been so good rushing the football. I look at the Cowboys and I look at their weaponry offensively and I say, okay, where are you going to get your touchdowns? Where are you going to get your yards? I think it's number 21, and I don't think 2,000 yards is out of the question for him. He had 1,630 yards his rookie year despite having a terrible week 1 and not playing in week 17. So, he was weeks 2 through 16 on a 1,900-yard pace.
But the problem is his dominance is only based upon how good and how healthy this offensive line is up front. So already we've got Zach Martin, the all-pro right guard that has a bum knee, hyperextended bone bruise. Travis Frederick now with the autoimmune disease that he just had. We know he's going to be out significant time. Haven't we seen in the past, like in 2017 when Tyron Smith wasn't on the field, what it meant to this offense?
For sure.
So when you're talking about a center and an all-pro and Travis Fredericks, you're not going to be able to replace him with somebody off of the street. Yesterday, Stephen Jones, we're in the market looking for offensive linemen. There's not a center that you're going to get out there right now that's going to come in and be able to do the job that he does, especially the vital importance of a center, not only making calls in protection and guiding the offensive line, but at that position, you can give up zero ground in the running game. If you give up any penetration, that ball is going to bounce backside to where the entire flow of the defense is coming from, and you're not going to get anything done. So for this offense to have that success and for him to have that dominance, he better have that offensive line healthy in front of him.
Two things you point out to me I thought were just a great observation. From an offensive line standpoint, everyone's watching the waiver wire. You pointed out, hey, Chris, it's easier to pick up a guy like you, fourth or fifth wide receiver.
Or a veteran with 400 or 500 catches. That's a guy you can bring in.
Right. Now, as far as big people, people are not letting go of offensive linemen. If you look,
not quality offensive linemen.
Right. So if you look at losing a center as a former offensive lineman, he's talking about the impact it has already on the offensive line. Now, there's only a few great centers in football. Now, the Cowboys have the best center, and losing him and his ability to be able to constantly be able to shore up the middle, because Tyron, we saw, you're saying that the losing the center is going to have the same effect as when they lost Tyron Smith, their left tackle.
And the one thing about when they didn't lose that left tackle, they didn't even do anything to adjust the schemes to help him out. But when you're talking about the middle of the offense and the middle of the pocket, any pressure in the A and B gap is going to get a quarterback off of a spot to where he's not being able to plant his feet, throw the ball accurately. Now, all of a sudden, it's getting sailed across the middle. And then when you start doing that and leaning on the passing game, who's their number one downfield true threat?
That's been the issue.
That's the big issue.
They don't have it right now.
They don't have it. And now all of a sudden you're going to go to Cole Beasley, which now they're going to bracket coverage. They're going to completely take him out of the game. So who are you really going to go to downfield? And that's where this wide receiver by committee is going to falter in the long run for their season.
I think a lot of people thought they would spend either their first-round pick or at least their second-round pick on a wide receiver. They waited until the third round, Michael Gallup. In the second round, instead, they take another offensive lineman. They're going to have a rookie starting offensive lineman.
And he struggled during the preseason.
Yes, he did.
Connor Williams.
And he was inside. He wasn't even at the tackle position when he played at A&M.
That's my question, though. How vital as a rookie offensive lineman is a veteran center?
It is vital for them because, like I said, the communication and the confidence, and more than anything, your quarterback better be comfortable getting under center, knowing that you're making all the calls and have him protected. Because if you don't feel that, now all of a sudden you have a Fargo quarterback who's messing around, running around till somebody gets open, and that does not help your O-line.
So now if I just walked into this conversation and I heard everything you say, I'd say, wow, Dak Prescott's going to have a tough year. If they are going to place so much emphasis on the running game and make Zeke do so much, at some point he's not going to be able to, and then you look at Dak Prescott and say, well, how is he going to handle an offensive line that's beat up and the lack of basically a depleted wide receiver core? How do you game plan what he's going to do this year?
Well, then the next thing that you do is if you can't get a solid run game going, you have to bring Dak Prescott into the element as a runner as well. That's something that they did his rookie year, making him roll out, run bootlegs, run nakeds,
RPO.
run a little RPO, zone reads. Make sure that you keep that backside defensive end honest, because if all of a sudden he starts crashing down and veering inside, then he can keep the ball and take it outside. If he's going to stay and be disciplined, it just opens up the gaps on the inside for Ezekiel to run.
If you want to look at a model, look at a younger Russell Wilson with a depleted offensive line in Seattle.
Great example.
That wasn't as good as the line that Dallas had, but what they required from Russell early. Now, Doug Baldwin, hey, listen, don't call me and everything. I'm not trying to rip you. At that time, they were not an established group of wide receivers. So if we watch Russell, what he had to do early, that's what we should be expecting from Dak in year number 3.
The Cowboys, over the last 2 years, with and without Zeke, it's 19-6 with him, 3-3 without him. If we want to just throw out, by the way, the Week 17 game when they were all playing their backups.
Yeah.
In that same stretch, they're 19-7, same record, when Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, and Travis Frederick all play.
Yeah.
And 3-3 when any one of them is missing. So we talked about the difference between with Zeke and without Zeke. Record-wise, it's the exact same
thing
with the 3 offensive linemen or without just one of them.
Yeah, and Jenna, as you and I talked about, they don't have a star wide receiver, but they do have a guy on that defense in Jalen Smith, who we believe is going to be a superstar. We believe their defense will be in the top 10. So Zeke running the ball and that defense, that's how Dallas gets in the playoffs.
And at the end of this season, we'll be able to judge if they should have taken Calvin Ridley with that pick or they were smart by taking Leighton Vander Esch.
The first-round pick this year, absolutely right.
All right, we've got to take a break. David, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Much
Great job.
appreciated. Football's about to start.
Hey,
Next on Football.
Jalen Ramsey happened to be on the field with you. Do you think you might run into him?
We are going after him.
Welcome back to First Things First. We are going viral. Yesterday, Cleveland defeated the Twins 5-3, further increasing their lead in the division, but it wasn't a great day for everyone in attendance. The Alabama Crimson Tide are the betting favorites to win the national title this season, and how about this? At plus 175, they've got the best odds to win the title since the 2005 USC Trojans. CC, is Alabama really that much better than everyone else?
Alabama is. They have more depth than anyone. They have 2 quality college football starting quarterbacks. They have the best coach in college football, and they got an easy schedule. That's part of the reason why they can get to the SEC or get to the Final Four playoff. That's why their odds are the plus 175.
I mean, they were able to get to the playoff last year without even playing in their own.
I think they've won 2
national
national championships without being SEC champs.
And so, so they have that added benefit as well, that if it's a 5-team race and one of the bubble teams is Bama, they're probably going to get in. Sorry, Ohio State, has happened last year. I don't know that I think they are much better than Georgia. Like, I think Georgia it can look eye to eye with them this year like they could last year in the title game. But, listen, betting against Bama at this point is a fool's errand. So I understand why they're such heavy favorites.
Yeah, the teams Clemson, Georgia, and Ohio State teams, like how good can their quarterbacks play against Bama? That will determine the national championship.
All right, moving on to the NFL now. Last night, A.J. McCarron started the Bills' final preseason game. He went 13 of 34, 2 interceptions, and was sacked 5 times. As my buddy Nick likes to say, that ain't great. All right, Nick, A.J. McCarron, go.
I mean, listen, what do you expect? This is if you'd have told me, hey, A.J. McCarron's going to play 4 quarters of NFL football, I don't care if it's week 4 of the preseason, regular season, postseason, well, it ain't going to be the postseason. It doesn't matter. Like, this is about what you're going to see. And this is why I think the Bills right now are the favorite to have the #1 overall pick next year. I think they have the worst quarterback situation in the NFL by a wide margin. They have 3 bad options. Nate Peterman is their best option. And I can't believe I'm saying that.
No, he's looked a lot better. We criticized Peterman, whatever his mom called us and said, we're going to get his name right and everything. But he has improved. He is their best option. I do believe they're the worst team in football. But you are your decisions. That's what you are. What about Tyrod Taylor? Got him to the playoffs last year. They have dropped off the map. You don't have to worry about playoff aspirations.
And keep in mind, they traded away their left tackle, trying to move up in the draft. So, and LaShawn McCoy is their best player. I mean, that commissioner's exempt list at some point could be coming for him. We don't know what his legal situation is. None of this is good for Buffalo.
Big drop-off for the Buffalo Bills. On to the Seahawks now. Starting linebacker K.J. Wright is expected to be out at least 2 weeks, opening the door for rookie Shaquem Griffin to start in his place. And what a feel-good story playing out for us in Seattle. Griffin's left hand was amputated when he was 4 years old because of amniotic band syndrome. Now he may be starting in the NFL. CeCe, what does this mean for the Seahawks?
Well, Jen, I know you love this story, great personal interest story. And, Nick, I think that you said this early. Chris, I'm excited about the story, but when it moves from being just a news story to we're talking about football and talking about his talent, that's what I'm looking forward to, and that's what we're doing. He has proven himself. His speed that he had in the 40 at the NFL Combine has transferred over. He's the leading tackler for Seattle's defense. And his skill set is what they look for. He's exactly like K.J. Wright is. Guy who can run, guy's a good tackler in space. So looking forward to see him play week number 1.
There are going to be guys from his round of the draft who get cut. There are going to be cut before the season starts, cut today or tomorrow. I would imagine when we look at all the starters from week 1, he'll be one of 3 or 4 from his spot in the draft. Like, so this is now an injury happened. He was next man up and he's ready. Yeah. And those are big shoes to fill. K.J. Wright is their second best linebacker, but he's only second best because Bobby Wagner is so good. Like, that's a good player he's got to fill in for. I think his skill set allows him to do so.
And for the rookie defenders, him, Mika Fitzpatrick down in Miami, they've been more of the most impressive that we've seen for rookie players in their first preseason.
Absolutely.
All right, some news out of New England now. The Patriots added $1 million in bonuses and $3.3 million in incentives to Rob Gronkowski's contract, raising his max value to $13 million. The incentives are based on playing time, catches, and receiving yards. CeCe, what does it tell you that the Patriots are willing to bend and give Gronk more money?
The Patriots trying to win. They got the Patriot way, but, yeah, we need to keep a couple of these guys happy. We can't just play with anybody out there. We can't just put anybody out there. And I'm glad to see their top players in Brady and in Gronk. They've earned it. I mean, it's a dangerous game. Gronk is back. Like, when Gronk says that I might not want to, it's not because I don't think I'm good at this game. It's because how much more of a pounding can his body take? Like, when he becomes an old man, he's like, listen, I like to be able to save a little something. They should be compensated. Gronk, he plays at a level that we've only seen a couple tight ends play at. Tom Brady, what he has done and his ability to give them a hometown discount for not 1 season, not 2 seasons.
Has really helped them.
It's helped them so much that, of course, they should be doing this. I don't want to hear that, oh, we got the company, oh, we don't do this. When you have special people, you make special concessions for them.
And people should, so here's how the incentives break down. $1 million, he has a $62,500 per game roster bonus. That times 16 gets you your $1 million bucks. So if he plays all 16 games, there's that $1 million. And then he can get $1.1 million for any of these next 4, but he only needs to get 3. He can only get 3 of them. 70 catches, 80% playing time, 9 or more touchdowns, or 1,085 yards. Why are those noteworthy? Last year he had 1,084 yards. So they ticked that up 1.
Yes.
Essentially, if he plays in at least 13 games, he's going to reach all those incentives, and he'll get almost the entire roster bonus. This is if you play the full season, we're giving you an extra $4 million bucks, and if you get hurt early, you're not getting the extra money. Now, one note for, go ahead, C.
And it also speaks to, no, we're not giving you a long-term contract. We're going to pay you for what you think you're worth right now. And they've done this the last 2 years. So if Gronk continues to say he might not play, I don't think they'll sign him to a long-term contract. I think they'll keep doing things a lot like this until he decides to either trade Gronk or Gronk decides he don't want to play.
And it should be noted, Brady is knowingly taking an undervalued deal because he wants to win. He knows his legacy is based on winning.
And he already has
and
money.
He's got so much money in his wife. Go ahead.
Gronk ain't about that.
No, Gronk is still paying for a decision he made that, by the way, if I were representing him, I would have cautioned him against. He was a second-round draft pick. So he was on a 4-year, $4.4 million deal. He was very good his first 2 years. So with 2 years left on a deal, paying him just $1 million a year, the Pats went to him. Hey, Rob, how about 6 years? $54 million. And that sounds amazing. 6 years, $54 million, I'm making $1 million. Well, he's still paying for that because they had him locked in and they got him so under market value if he continued that performance.
Just like they signed one of their offensive linemen to
Shaq Mason.
Yeah, 5 years, $50 million. People are like, whoa, he got $50 million. Hey. There's some little tricky stuff there
they can get out of it at any time after 2 years, like they could with Gronk. And if they keep him on the roster, it means he's outperformed it. So the benefit of signing those deals early before you hit free agency is you get security. Gronk had injury issues. He got a big bonus up front. That's great. The downside is if you don't get hurt and you keep producing, it's more soup, please. It's like you go them like maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. Okay, we'll give you more money, but only if you stay healthy. Like Gronk could legitimately be making double what he makes. Double. And now instead of getting an actual salary raise, he's getting, if you stay healthy, we'll give you more money, which I get why the Pats are doing it, but he's still paying for a decision he made.
How many more years can
ago.
Gronk put up those kind of numbers?
Oh, I mean, if he's healthy, I think he can do this for another 4 or 5 years.
Well, this is the thing. We don't know the state where his body is.
Yeah.
All right? And
he wears armor all up.
I mean, look at him.
Yeah.
I mean, Gronk is built for football, but only so much football. Even the best of them, the biggest of them, eventually they have their day. I believe Gronk can play another 3 years. I don't know if he can play 3 years in New England.
And his body almost works against him because he's so big, the way guys have to hit him to bring him down, like the different places on his body, especially now that you can't hit guys high. I mean, they got to hit him low. They got to hit him in the legs. When they did hit him high in the playoff game, got a concussion. Like, I mean, he plays a punishing position in a punishing manner.
And the reason why he was drafted in the second round, he had problems in Arizona. Bad back. He was marked down. So he was a medical risk coming into the league.
Right. All right. Let's move on to all the reasons we'll all be home Saturday night. There's really just one big one. Huge college football game this weekend. Michigan heading to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. Who won't be watching that? Jim Harbaugh enters year 4 as Michigan's $9 million head coach. Cece, how much pressure is on Harbaugh this season?
Well, there's a certain amount of pressure because what we've seen in the great coaches in college, when they decide to make the transition, and typically no matter where they go, in the first 1-2 years in college, you can get the program turned around. The big programs we've all seen turned around within 3 years. If you look at Nick Saban, what he did, look at Urban, what he did, forget about Florida, Ohio State, the big programs get turned around quick. He's got the program turned around. He just can't coach quarterbacks, obviously, because he's got a bunch of kids that he has gone through, guys who had high marks in high school, and they came there. And also he's had a bunch of guys who have transferred that he has not been able to get the productivity from the quarterback. Their defense, it's been nationally ranked a couple years. It's the best part of their team. Their quarterback struggle has prevented them from being able to perform in the big games. Also, your two rivals, Michigan State and Ohio State, you can't only win one game in 3 years against those teams. So he's 1-5 against the two biggest rivals.
All right, so listen, I think Harbaugh is better than his record has suggested. He takes over 5-7 team. His first year he goes 10-3. That loss to Michigan State is after a bad snap on a punt. His second year, they are, I believe, a faulty spot away from beating Ohio State and being in the college football playoff. Last year was by Michigan standards, a disastrous year. You can't go 8-5, and they lost their final 3 games of the year, which is why this game becomes critically important. It's basically a pick-em at Notre Dame. If people glance at Michigan's schedule, what you're going to see is middle of October to early November. How about home for number 4 Wisconsin, at number 11 Michigan State, home for Penn State. Those are 3 games in a row. And then a couple weeks later, how about you go to the Horseshoe to play Ohio State? They have a brutal last 6 weeks of the year. You can't start off 0-1. Like, you just can't. So for Michigan's, I mean, they could because Notre Dame's good. It's on the road. It's a pick-em. But if they are going to have a chance at getting 10 wins, because 10 wins his first year was not nearly as impressive as 10 wins would be this year with this schedule. And as far as the quality of the Big Ten, with Penn State being back, with Wisconsin having arguably the best team Wisconsin's had in a decade. Like, this is a tough year in that conference, so you can't lose your your rivalry game against a non-conference opponent in Notre Dame. I'm curious to see their quarterback. You said he hasn't been able to coach quarterbacks at Michigan. He's got the best quarterback he's ever had. The transfer from Ole Miss.
He's got new coaches, a new strength coach this year, an offensive line coach this year, and you're still shaking your head.
They've been through a couple of strength coaches. They changed. They were with Adidas. Then they went to Brand Jordan. They've changed everything but that guy. All right? Like, they think Harbaugh was going to answer all the things. Harbaugh has been a disappointment in college football. Now, Nick might think it's cute. The guy shows up in khakis at a kid's house at midnight. Like, Michigan should have a good quarterback with Jim Harbaugh as the coach.
That has been a failure by him. I think they have a good quarterback this year. I also think he's Urban, Saban, in no order. Urban, Saban, Dabo, Chris Peterson. Those are, to me, James Franklin maybe as well.
Where
Your
does
five
Harbaugh
best coaches.
fit
Well, that's what I was going to say.
We shouldn't even be talking about him, if you ask me. Because what has he done to prove it? And nothing. We're basing we're basing it on, man, he was a good NFL coach, and we give him credit for that. But he has not been a great coach since he's been at Michigan. That just happens to be the fact. Even if I had gone to another school, I wouldn't be saying, you know something, I think Harbaugh's done great in his 3 years at Michigan. No, he hadn't.
What I'm basing it off of, he's won everywhere he's ever been. Stanford now is a power program. It wasn't when he got there. He beat USC and that Pete Carroll dynasty.
How many years did it take him, though?
What?
How many years did it take him to get Stanford turned around?
What, 3 years?
He's past that time.
Okay, but Michigan was a bad spot away from being in the playoff in year 2 after being a disastrous situation under Brady Hoke. He got them turned around in 2 years. Last year was a down year. So the best coaches don't have him. I get it. He's not Urban. He's not Saban.
Okay, well, let's say that then.
I did say that.
Okay, there we go. I
did
like
say
that.
I said to me, there's 5 coaches that are clearly superior to him. But you can't say anyone other than that list of the truly elite 5 guys that are clearly better than him.
I do know some people at Michigan. I do know some people on the board of trustees, and they are not happy with the overall performance of Jim Harbaugh with his football team and some other stuff that's happened as far as recruiting, shenanigans, things like that.
They should be careful what they wish for.
Quickly, what would you consider a good season for this Michigan team this year? 10 wins and
10 wins.
A win over one of the rivals?
No, 10 wins is not good enough. You got to win your conference. Right? Would you like to say Jim Harbaugh, after 4 years at Michigan, you know what he hasn't won? He hadn't won the Big Ten. He could win 10 games, but if he does not win the Big Ten, it will be a failure. Those are the normal standard for Michigan men. He's not a Michigan man, so he don't know that, but that's the normal standard that they have.
All right. You got all that?
That's a tough standard when the best team in the country might be
They've only been playing football for great football for 130 years.
I understand.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Chris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolf. So long, everybody.